Presuppositional chaos. Religion, statism, and morality are not rationally analyzed upon their adoption by and large. They are presupposed at an early age. Children are taught that God says X, and that X is immoral, and that they should listen to the teacher and policemen. This is why, as of 2010, most people believe in 1. God, 2. The legitimacy and necessity of the state, and 3. Morality. Immediately following the collapse of one of these idols, many will try to fool themselves by redefining God as the universe, redefining the state as the institutions of social order, and redefining morality as aggregate utility, or utilitarianism, or individualistic utility, or egoism, and ethics being the means to achieve these morals. Morality and religion are often connected, but not necessarily so, as all social animals have subjective senses of justice which humans, through language, made explicit. However, in making them explicit, humans opened their morals up to syllogistic examination, and anyone could ask why. Why is non-retaliatory killing wrong? Because if everyone went around killing, our lives would be ruined. Oh, so that which ruins our lives is immoral. I guess so. Then why call it a matter of morality when you're just appealing to your own subjective utility? And that's the blank out. An honest answer would be, well, we call moral or immoral things that arouse positively or negatively our senses of justice. And since our senses of justice are mostly universal, no killing, stealing, raping, slandering, we are able to get together and form a functional and peaceful society through this relative agreement. But thanks to religion, the first principle of God was introduced. Instead of honestly saying, well, there is no morality, just intersubjective consensus, they say, X is immoral because God, even though God's omnipotence and omniscience doesn't even imply morality. And when asked why God's conception of morality bears a striking resemblance to the morality of people not enlightened by God's wisdom, the response is that, well, man was made in the image of God, and so is a facsimile whose values and morals will bear resemblance to the commandments. But now that more and more people are starting to not believe in God, atheists are trying to cobble together a justification for their morality, and this cannot be done. And it's simple. You cannot derive an ought from an is. And a nearly universal characteristic doesn't imply an objective ought either. All notions of ought and right and wrong are just that, notions. It is definitionally notional, even if it is God's notion. So the reason we are currently in this moral mess is because of the presupposition of God, or if not God, most children were fed some morality by their atheist parents, if their parents were atheists. And children have very weak intellectual defenses against their parents. So when a parent says something, the child will just suppose it true. So the presupposed authority of the parent results in a parent being able to influence the child's beliefs beyond rational argumentation. The parent says something, and the child more or less assumes it true. This makes evolutionary sense, as a child who listened to a parent when the parent told him to not touch a spider would be more likely to live than one that analyzed for himself the safety of playing with spiders. The presupposed authority of the parent is not something to be necessarily despised or lauded. It's a trait that evolved, nothing more. Most animals have far more presuppositions than humans. It is considered a mark of intelligence if an animal learns something from the parent, even if this learning is disintegrated. Most animals learn almost nothing and live their lives and their lives are the simple acting out of the reflexes that aren't learned but are presupposed in the DNA, a genetic presupposition. This is why humans are completely useless as babies, whereas baby deers can walk upon birth. Using this standard, we can be discreet about who we call subhuman, right? People with lots of presuppositions. They lack the trait that differentiates humans from other animals: integrated thought or learning, though I would caution against the cavalier branding of the term subhuman for practical reasons. A small child is also inclined to listen to the presupposed authorities of society at large as he detects them. This, of course, fades out as a person becomes older, and I am inclined to believe that presuppositions are on net a positive. Hypnotism works by this principle. The subject is put into a trance. Now, a trance is not anything special, it is not something discrete, but a continuum. When you daydream, you are in a light trance. When you suddenly become keenly aware of your immediate surroundings, the ground you are on, the size and feel of the objects around you, perhaps even noticing the silliness of gravity, you are in a less trancy state, of mind, or what I would call an anti-trance. But when in a trance, the subject has less intellectual defenses. And so whatever is said to the person while in a trance is more likely to be presupposed to be true. The deeper the trance, the weaker the intellectual defenses. However, if the person goes too deep, he falls asleep and cannot even hear the hypnotist, and so no suggestion is possible. This is not the same as the child presupposing parental authority. It is presupposing whatever is said by anyone because one is in a trance. I'm not sure how well this works in practice, but that is the principle behind hypnotism. It is no accident that speakers at political rallies become hypnotic, and it is through presupposition that God, the state, and the sacrosanctity of the family and morality are believed in, especially the self-contradictory absurdity of the democratic state, right? Which is, we need the state to protect us from ourselves, but we can decide what this state does through elections. At least an autocrat or a monarch can say, I know better than you, listen to me, peon, and be consistent in his theistic megalomania. For the democratic state, the necessity of the state was presupposed, and democracy was then how it was supposed to become non-tyrannical. It wasn't even thought through. Because if humans are bad and they need some external intervention to make them good, well, then you have an autocratic state that's going to intervene and tell these people how to behave. A democratic state is like the state intervenes to tell people how to behave, but this state is decided by the people. Like, then what's the point of it even being a state at all? Right? That's why democracy is exploding. Like it's not even internally consistent, whereas a monarchy is internally consistent. Anyway, the hypnotic voice of my mother. I theorize that this is what the sirens parabled. I personally believe it was a vivid dream Homer had that modalized the belief that his mother was abusive. Chaos springs forth from the null zone. This is the zone disconnected from reality, or in economics, disintegrated from the structure of production. And the institution that creates the economic null zone, the state, is believed via a childhood presupposition, the evolutionary null zone. This null zone allows children to learn very fast, dare I say, artificially fast and in a disintegrated manner. And this is what allows concepts to be transferred intergenerationally quickly. It is this disintegrated presuppositional learning process. And this also allowed for the presupposition of God. The first states were justified by this presupposition of God, and after that the state itself became directly presupposed. Primitive societies gave children horrible presuppositions, and the result was horrible societies. And we're paying the price for bad presuppositions to this day.